All right, guys, back with the second graph. Got it right here. So hopefully you gave it a try. Notice that this one only has one solution or one x-intercept, and that is okay. We're going to find it sometimes that we have no x-intercepts. So if you have questions on this, please let me know. All right, so your solution or your root is x equals -1. All right, going to move on to the next two examples. All right, so this one, finding the zeros of the quadratic function. This one's very similar to example 2. All right, we're going to start off by setting it equal to 0. So we're just going to basically replace f of x with 0. So we're going to say 2x squared minus 11x plus 12 equals 0. So we don't typically enjoy factoring when we have a values greater than 1. So the first thing we would usually ask ourselves is, can we divide everything evenly by 2? Even though we can this term and that term, we can't here. So because of that, now we have to find our product and sum. All right, so we got to find numbers that multiply and numbers that add. Okay, so what numbers do we get? Well, since we have this a value, we're not going straight to 12. Plus, if you thought about two numbers multiply, give you 12, add to get a -11, you'd be there all day. So we have to multiply 2 times 12. So 2 times 12 gives us 24. All right, and then we need -11. So this term is still our addition term. So we need two numbers that when you multiply them, you get positive 24, but when you add them, you get -11. So the only way to get a positive number if you're dealing with negatives is if both of our factors are negative. So hopefully you've thought of two numbers that you could multiply that would work. I'm going with 8 and 3. I think that's our only option. And so -8 times -3 does give us positive 24. -8 plus -3 does give us -11. So we come up here, and what we're doing is we're now breaking this term up. So we're breaking it up into -8x and -3x. Everything else stays the same. So we're bringing down 2x squared, and we're bringing down plus 12. So now at this point, we got to factor by grouping. So we're going to group these first two together. We're going to group those two together. And we're factoring. So think of it as reverse distributive property. So like, what do these two terms have in common? They both are even numbers, and they both have an x. So we can factor out a 2x. So what would be left inside? So you could look at it as 2x times what would give you 2x squared? X. 2x times what would give you -8x? So we would say -4. Okay, and then you could check yourself. So 2x times x does give us 2x squared. 2x times -4 does give us -8x. So now with this one, here's the catch though. In parentheses has to be the same exact thing. So you have to have x minus 4 again. So you need to know what term could you factor out of here to make this true. So think about it this way. What could you multiply to x to get -3x? Well, hopefully you said -3. Does that work? So if you take -3, multiply it to -4, do you get positive 12? You do. So now what we do is we take this term, and we bring them together. And then this term and this term comes together. So you end up with 2x minus 3 times x minus 4 equals 0. So like I said, very similar to what we did in example 2 minus the extra factoring. So now we're going to come over just like we did in example 2, and we're going to set each one equal to 0. So 2x minus 3 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. And then we're just going to solve for x. So solve for x, see what you end up with. So hopefully you got 3/2 and 4, or 3/2 is also known as 1.5 for all my fraction haters out there. All right, so hopefully you got that. And in this case, we're calling them zeros. So why so many different words? I can't give you an honest answer on that. Like, I really am not sure. I know like why they call it zeros. They call it zeros because it's your x-intercepts. It's where y is 0. They call it roots because of the same kind of idea. You just need to know that your x-intercepts, your zeros, and your roots are all the same thing. Okay, so all three of those are the same thing. That's what you need to know. They call it different things depending on how the question is set up. So zeros usually goes with function. Roots usually go with graphing. All right, last question. A streaming service company charges $6 per month and has 15 million subscribers. For each $1 increase in price, the company loses 1.5 million subscribers. How much should the company charge to maximize monthly revenue? What is the maximum monthly revenue? So I'm going to, what are we trying to find? I don't know why I said I'm going to. What are we trying to find? Well, we know we have the monthly revenue, right? Oh, that's ugly. So we have the monthly revenue. That's what we're looking for, right? So we know that they pay $6 per month. There are 15 million subscribers, and the company loses 1.5 million for each $1 increase in price. All right. So how can we set this up? Well, we know that if you take your number of subscribers and multiply it to how much it costs per month, that would give you your revenue for the month. So let's start there and let's set something up in words. All right, so we got the monthly revenue equals the number of subscribers times the subscription price. So let's call our monthly revenue R of X, our number of subscribers. So we have 15 million, but we lose 1.5 million of subscribers for every dollar increase in price. So this is how we're going to set this up. Our subscription price we know is $6, and as we add whatever X is to our number of subscribers that we lose, this is going up. So how do we find the maximum price? So we're going to set this up thinking about like x-intercept form. We're going to rewrite this to where the x is in front, and we can also factor this out. So first I'm going to rewrite this with negative 1.5x plus 15. And then I'm going to rewrite this one as x plus 6. So I didn't change anything. The negative's still with the 1.5. The positive's still with that. All right, but I do want to factor out a value here to make it x plus a number. So they both have 1.5 in common. I'm going to factor out that negative 1.5. And if I do that, negative 1.5 times x would give me negative 1.5x. And negative 1.5 times 10, or not, I want positive 10, or positive 15, right? So I need to multiply by a negative 10, because a negative times a negative gives me a positive. So then I can bring down the x plus 6. All right, so you could think about this as intercept form. So we learned in chapter 2 that we can take intercept form and we can find our axis of symmetry. Once we know our axis of symmetry, we can use that to find our y value, which will give us our vertex where your maximum monthly revenue lies. So we need to know what is the vertex of this equation. Okay, so we are going to take our two x-intercepts and we're going to divide them by 2. So keep in mind, when we have our x-intercepts, remember in chapter 2, they come out as the opposite, right? Because this is technically x minus p, x minus q. So we need, that's going to be a negative 6. So Miss Gill, what are you mumbling about? Let's just go over here. So this does go back to your x-intercepts are the opposite. Might help if you can see what I just wrote. So I got x equals, I'm going to have a positive 10 because when we pull it out of the equation, it's the opposite. And I'm going to add it to negative 6. Why? Because based on these equations, 10, 0 and negative 6, 0 are my x-intercepts. Okay. So I know that my axis of symmetry is directly in the middle of those. So x equals 4 divided by 2, which equals 2. So what does this mean? That means that each subscription at my maximum monthly price, each subscription would be $2 plus my original $6. Okay, so the subscription would be $8, right? That would be our cost. So now we're going to take this too, we're going to plug it into here to find our Y value, our maximum profit, our revenue. That's what we're doing, revenue. So we're going to plug in 2. All right, so we plugged in 2 for X. You solve it, you get 96. So what does this mean? This means that each subscription should cost your 2 plus your 6, so $8, and that your maximum monthly revenue would be this 96 million. So I will write that in words for you. So each subscription should cost $8 to maximize the monthly revenue of $96 million. And that must be an awesome subscription. I want to make 96 million. Well, I mean, okay. Anyway, before Miss Gill goes on a tangent about what that really means, but all right, guys. So hopefully you didn't find this lesson too hard. Again, if there's like parts of it, the factoring, the square roots that you want to discuss a little further, we can do that. We don't have to necessarily do those specific questions if that's the part that's getting you. So just let me know when I see you in class, all right? So I will see you guys in class.